Welcome or welcome back. Today we are going to be working on a different crochet project. I think I'm going to try to make a market bag that I really like and will use. I've tried different patterns in the past and either the proportions weren't kind of what I wanted to, or they were too loose or too sturdy. So today I'm actually going to work on making one of my own and seeing how that goes. I have some yellow acrylic yarn here, and I kind of have the idea of making the base of increases of 6 single crochets. So if you start off your magic circle with 6 single crochets and follow a normal increase pattern, each new round you will have an additional 6 stitches, which is what I want because I also want it to be a little decorative. So I'm thinking about doing some scallops after the base and then building up the mesh around that. So I don't know how far we will get tonight, but I figured we could kind of see how it goes. I might take some notes as we go through so that I can kind of see what I need to adjust or to make as we go forward with this project. And maybe it'll end up as a nice pattern. My yarn was knotted up, so I needed to redo the magic circle. The way I do it is I have the yarn end in the back side of my hand. I wrap around, it'll cross, and then forward so that there's this on the back, this on the top, hook side down, underneath the first, over top the second, twist up so your hook is facing forward, lift your ring finger, and then pull through. And then I like to pinch where the 2 strands are, and I kind of helps me crochet a little better if I pull that straight so they're parallel. And then since this is single crochets, I will chain 1 and then just single crochet around 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Pull, and then that little bump with your single crochet doesn't count as a stitch. So when we slip stitch into the next one, we're actually go on top of the actual stitch itself. And I've had my tension relatively tight because I want the bag space to be sturdy. 6. Okay, so I'm going to chain 1, go into our next stitch and do 2 single crochets in each stitch moving around, and then we will have 12. 1, and then our last 2. And we will stitch to join. So let me just have my count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. From this point, I will take a stitch counter. It kind of helps not to have to count as frequently or to think about it so hard when you're moving around. And so I will adjust that every time I end a row. So now instead of doing two single crochets in each stitch, we're going to do the first stitch as a single crochet, and then our increase will be in this every second stitch. So it'll be 1 single crochet, and then the next stitch 2, and we'll do that all the way around. And you want to keep these relatively even, but I don't know of any crocheter that hasn't accidentally miscounted and just done an increase there at the end. It might make something not super even, but it gives you the right amount of stitches. So don't stress out about it so much. We're just making stuff for ourselves and having a relaxing time. Okay. And if it helps with your trying to see where stitches and things are, you should always end on an increase. So this will be our last stitch. Yeah. And we don't chain one as we move across, because we're trying to keep this relatively tight, and you don't really want a seam. So I want to keep up with how many rounds I'm doing. So off camera, I've got my iPad. So we did our magic circle, and we had our round 1 of 6, round 2 of our 12, and round 3 will be 18. And so now, the next stage of our increase, if I can keep my yarn untangled, which I never do. The nature of the increases that we're doing here, we're going to, we'll go 1 single crochet, next stitch, 1 single crochet, next stitch, our third stitch, 2 single crochets. So every additional round, your stitch where you put your 2 single crochets moves over 1. So we have our first round of increases where every stitch was an increase, and then we had 1, and now we've got the 2 single crochets before we hit our increase stitch. So the more you do this, the more kind of second nature it becomes. good thing about crochet is if you mess up or you miscount or you miss your increase, you can always, the beauty also of the stitch marker is you can just undo that row and you can go on about your day. Also, even though these stitches are tight, they're pretty easy to see, like here's your increase. It kind of makes more of a V. You have your 2 singles and then you have your increase. Okay, and then our last stitch of this round is an increase. So have around 24, and we will move our stitch marker. I'm kind of trying to suss out how big I want the bottom of the market bag to be. I mean, obviously bigger than this, but maybe like that. For produce, I think that's a pretty good size. So now we've done that row, or round, however you want to think about it. And so now our increase happens on the 4th stitch. So 1, 2, 3 single crochets, and then our increase. And you just repeat that until your circle is the size that you want it. You just follow that pattern. This yarn is so tangled because I started making a market bag off of a pattern and I'd pretty much gotten to the handles and realized that I didn't like the shape. It seemed too wide and not long enough. So I'm kind of starting over in what I hope will be something that I like a bit better, that will be for what, the right size for what I want to use it for. And again, if you're like counting, there's our V. 1, 2, 3, and then our double in the 4th. And we will move our stitch marker And that is our round 5, 30 stitches. So now it will be we'll do 1, 2, 3, 4 single crochets. And then our increase. The larger something gets, the more I just get into single crochet mind and forget where I'm at and have to make sure that I'm putting the increases in the correct spaces. But the good thing is if you get off when you hit the end, and if you're not on an increase, there is your sign that something is off. And I will likely make a mistake at some point. Also, I'm trying not to have my hands walk off camera. And through filming, it's become quite apparent that I don't stay stationary when I am crocheting. Should probably stick a piece of tape or something on the table so that like a marker where I know where to come back to. All right. So that is round 6 and 36 stitches. Okay, now we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, increase, which just means 2 stitches, 1 stitch. Sorry, bumped you. as the ball of yarn walks ever closer. Okay. And then here is our increase. Move our stitch marker. Take a quick water break. And let's do one more round. Okay, where are we at? 1, 2, 3, 4. And now our increase happens on our 7th stitch. Oh, hang on, forgot to mark the row. So that was 7, 42 stitches. Increase on the 7th. Increase on the 7th. And increase on 7th. Increase on our 7th. And we will increase on our last stitch here. Move our stitch marker. And then we will mark our round 8. Okay, that's where I think we're going to call it a night. I do want this to maybe double the size that this is before we start working the back up and doing some scallop detail like I mentioned before. I will return to the Zorro project for part 4. I think the schedule's got a little wonky with 2 and 3 of the parts, but still trying to figure out how to schedule posts, and I think I just maybe hit the wrong day. Hopefully that won't be a problem from here on out. So look out for part 4 of the Zorro colorwork project, and also our continuation of a market bag. Thank you guys for joining me, and have a good rest of your day or night.